Have you ever wondered why you can eat a piece of cake and be hungry again 30 minutes later, but one steak can keep you full all day? Today, Rob Bateman and are uncovering the truth about keto versus carnivore and might just change how you eat forever. We are recording. Hey,
Perfect.
um, welcome everybody. My name is Marc Bates. I'm a metabolic health coach, and we have a guest today, Robert Bateman. And Robert, please introduce yourself, sir.
Yes, hi guys. So my name is Rob Bateman. So I have a couple of companies that are focusing on helping people with their health issues, specifically, reversing diabetes and just all the things associated with, the excess weight that people tend to carry as a result of poor diet choices. And like my approach is basically forget all the supplements, everything, all the pharmaceutical companies tell you and just focus on clean food without anything processed and just utilizing single ingredient foods in order to achieve your goals. And I've been doing this for a couple of years, and we've had quite consistently like great success by having people follow like a diet fueled by just clean protein and vegetables. And so, but during my kind of journey, and because this is what I'd always kind of believed, but kind of since kind of meeting Mark, I kind of reevaluated my perspective on a lot of things to do with food and questioning a lot of things that I always kind of knew internally didn't make sense, but without any kind of concise arguments, it's hard to kind of piece it together. And yeah, exactly. You're laughing because you
Yeah.
know the truth. And really, I just kind of I've had a couple of discussions with Mark, and I've looked through a lot of his content on YouTube, and I just find that um, simplifies a lot of things for people, and it's also kind of adjusted what I thought, and even I've always emphasized protein and vegetable based diet, but even just after just talking a few weeks ago, that I've also been experimenting with carnivore diet as well because I wanted to test it for myself because
Mm-hmm.
you can't have an opinion about something unless you have tried it. Otherwise, you're just relying on a study from this person, study from this person, and it just becomes so confusing and conflicting that I just really wanted to um, jump on a call with Mark so we can share with people who are in that position where there's so much advice out there, and I know we're about to put some other advice out there, so we're kind of throwing it into the mix, but just to let people know that, they're not alone in what they
Mm-hmm.
think, and like the truth for health is not in something that is has just been discovered or has just been invented. It just doesn't make any sense for our existence. So, like, really, health prevention just lies in clean eating and appropriate diet before that. And
Mm-hmm.
diet, it doesn't have to be um, restrictive or boring. I think it's just about reevaluating how we feel about food and just, you know, really just move it back to the category of this is just what the body needs,
Mm-hmm.
and we shouldn't be using it for like too much for enjoyment. Obviously, there's special occasions and things like that, but it shouldn't be a day-to-day pleasure source. It should be tasty, yes, because you need to be able to eat it,
Sure.
but enjoyment should be in things more fulfilling, like sports or family, social events. And that's really what it is. So that's
Yeah.
just kind of a long-winded introduction as to
No,
kind of
it was
how
great,
I
Rob.
kind of got here.
It was great. Before we get too deep into this, why don't you go ahead and talk a little bit about No Time to Cook, which you have in the
Sure.
corner there, so that
Hmm.
people know and why I wanted to have them understand who you are so
Hmm.
they could potentially help you out with the growth of your business.
Absolutely. So, for the last 2 years in Vancouver, Canada, I've been essentially providing these wellness programs for people that struggle with um, poor eating, their overweight and things like that, and also coupled with, their busy lifestyles, professionals, all these things. So they don't have time to cook. So that's why we called it No Time to Cook, because we're just literally filling the spot where you don't need to go to a nutritionist or dietitian who are going to give you a list of ingredients and say, follow this. You're saying, hey, shortcut, this is all you need. Just take this, eat these meals, lunch and dinner every day for 6 weeks, and it's going to, resolve pretty much everything of all your issues. Like, if you drop 20 pounds, suddenly the back pain, the approach to diabetes, all these things, it's just in remission. It's dealt with.
Beautiful.
And
Yes.
also, a lot of people come out of it and like now they're in a position where they're motivated to maintain their new weights because
Hmm.
often when you're in that kind of position where you feel like nothing works, you don't want to, like, it's very hard mentally to make that change. So we kind of help people take that first step,
Hmm.
get them in a kind of healthy range, and then we want them to kind of come off the program. We don't want to be like an eternal crutch for them because then you're no better than any of the other drug companies. Right? It's a process. We want to educate
Yes.
people and get them through different. So then kind of realizing the effectiveness of eating like this, then I realized, well, there's no,
Yeah, no, that's absolutely
like,
great. And if I
yeah.
can just
Hmm.
interject one thing here, just to let people know that, and part of what I was talking with Rob is how changing your diet and eating clean, which is essentially
Hmm.
what Rob has been doing all along here, is absolutely phenomenal way of helping. But where I got him to start looking at other sources, especially like in the ketogenic therapeutic and or
Hmm.
carnivore realm. Not
Hmm.
that I was trying to convince Rob to become a carnivore, but I just wanted him to expand his horizons a little bit because the problem most people have when they start a program, they're thinking, oh, I need to lose 20 pounds. So they go on a diet to lose 20 pounds. And as a metabolic health coach, what I will constantly stress is that weight is not in itself a problem.
Hmm.
It's a symbol of how metabolically healthy or unhealthy potentially are. And so if you're
Hmm.
carrying extra weight, there's usually a metabolic issue there why you're
Right.
doing that.
Yeah.
And so I don't focus on weight loss is what I tell people about, but it's an ultimate result of doing what I talk
Right.
about. But it's not I don't advertise myself as a weight loss thing, and which a lot of health coaches do, which I think's getting the cart before the horse, so to speak. But
Hmm.
the big thing that Rob is talking about here, and this is me because this is I've got the background in cellular biology and the health coaching and all of the functional medicine stuff. Um, what happens is if you're eating the typical SAD diet, right, standard American diet or
Hmm.
North American
Hmm.
diet, uh,
Hmm.
Rob being Canadian, we'll be inclusive here. So, but if you're eating the standard diet, which is very heavy on carbohydrates, so
Yeah.
typically multiple times a day, three or more. Most people eat 3 meals a day, right?
Hmm.
Starting with breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and then you'll have a couple snacks or maybe even three snacks. So you're talking
Hmm.
four, five,
Hmm.
six
Hmm.
times a day. You're eating heavy carbs into your diet. And carbs cause two real quick problems. One is that they release insulin, and insulin is the hormone that tries to get the carbs out of your bloodstream because that is actually bad for your body, right?
Yeah.
And there are all kinds of effects of that, which I won't go into detail here. I've got lots of videos on that sort of stuff. But the idea
Hmm.
is that you're releasing insulin. And then the second thing happens is that carbs, when they hit your gut, they release ghrelin, which is another hormone. And that's actually the hunger hormone,
Hmm. Hmm.
right?
Hmm. Hmm.
And that makes you hungry. And what happens is that when the insulin starts dropping your blood sugar, and then the ghrelin hits, you're hungry, and so what's the immediate things your body says? Oh, I need more energy. Well,
Hmm. Hmm.
if your body is in sugar burning mode, right? Then what you're going to eat is more carbs, which
Yeah.
releases more insulin, releases more ghrelin, and that's
Absolutely.
why people
Yeah.
will sit there and they'll
Yeah.
eat a piece of chocolate cake, and 30 minutes later they want
Yeah.
some more.
Yeah,
So
and
yeah,
like you have to think about like these foods that cause that in
hmm,
our society, they are the most readily available because they
yes,
are things that are easily dry packaged,
hmm,
cookies and things like that. So if there was protein snacks everywhere, like bits of cooked meat and things like that, we wouldn't have this problem. because
Exactly.
you don't because you
100%.
because I mean something I noticed just from trying out this carnivore focused, I would probably have like a say a small chicken breast and a piece of fish for lunch, and I would eat it, and I would immediately feel satiated,
Hmm.
and I'm not hungry, but like also I feel there's no side effects of eating. Like
Hmm.
there's no kind of tiredness or brain fog. I'm like straight back into work, like creative, um, dealing with things like tackling quite complex problems, because I'm obviously launching my online business as well. So there's no downtime required after eating, which is something I did have noticed the difference between when I would typically have my kind of like healthy keto type meals. Like
Hmm.
I will go back and test eating those meals to see how I feel, but certainly in terms of like time efficiency,
Hmm.
carnivore is the way to go because it's like you just eat the food and then you're off.
Right.
And that really, I mean, we're gonna get fully into a kind of ancestral diet patterns in a bit, but that just makes so much more sense
Hmm.
into our efficiency as humans because if we have to eat food all day, how are we going to achieve anything? Like,
Exactly. So,
and then
so
the last thing I'm
keep
just
going,
gonna
Rob. Yeah, I just
yeah,
was.
and then the last thing I'm just gonna just add because this might loop back to the beginning.
Hmm.
Um, so because of the program we were doing in Vancouver, that's when I realized, okay, these recipes have the potential to help tens, maybe hundreds of thousands of people all around the world that
Hmm.
are having issues because they don't know where to turn, they don't know what the first step is. And so that's why I've created my online program, which is basically the recipes I've been using for the actual meals in for people here. But it's really a step-by-step process. So it doesn't matter if you barely cooked anything before, which is often uh, that kind of initial false truth that people tell
Hmm.
themselves, "Oh, I can't cook." But I'm saying, well, it doesn't matter. Like this is step-by-step guide, same as if you're putting together some IKEA furniture, and most people can do that. This is
Yep.
like step by step. It doesn't like have courses on just how to hold a knife, how to chop an onion, all these things. So just to get people in the kitchen and preparing their own meals, because I think the
Hmm.
freedom, everyone's health lies in that fr the freedom of being able to prepare their own meals. Because if you can always reliant on outside sources, even what might seem as like healthy meal prep things, it might be heavy in brown rice or something like that. It's like you don't necessarily need. But if you can just make some clean meals for like 80% of your week, then you're winning,
Hmm.
right?
That's a wonderful. And part of the reason I was so excited when Rob and I started talking was I wanted to get him involved because see, this is where I really fall flat as the metabolic health coach, is because if you ask me what I eat and should you eat like me, my answer is no. Because for me, um, I eat what's called an OMAD diet for the most part. It's one meal a day.
Right.
That's what I've become very adapted to. And my
Hmm.
one meal, and I just had it a little while ago. It's very easy. It's quarter pound to a third of a pound of ground beef that I grill up.
Yep.
It's my own mix, by the way, right? So it's ground chuck, a liver, little bit of kidney, or
Hmm.
yeah, kidney and some heart in there, right? Just to get some of that other stuff in there that's good for you. And I'll get like a quarter pound up to a third of a pound of that. I grill it up, uh, and I throw it in a bowl. And on top of that, I put four eggs that
Hmm.
are cooked very. And once again, this is the optimal in my mind to cook eggs. Is a very soft over very low heat scramble because you don't
Hmm.
want to overcook eggs because you lose a lot of nutrition when you do that.
Hmm.
And I
Hmm.
throw that over the ground beef, and that's what I eat. And literally, I eat that almost every day. So
Mm.
if you would say, "Hey, Mark, how do I do?" It's like don't follow me because if you're like somebody who likes to
Yeah.
eat something different every day,
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
going to be a terrible person to tell you what to eat.
Yeah. I'm,
And
yeah. I mean, this last couple of weeks, like twice a week, I just basically fire up the charcoal grill
mhm,
and I just cook some burger patties, a couple of steaks, some chicken thighs, some salmon. I just cook it all, boom, in the fridge. And then I would just take out like
mhm.
like a couple of pieces. I think the key for anyone who's transitioning onto it, because people love to say it's so extreme and it's so restrictive, but really, a lot of people hate eating vegetables anyway. The
Yeah.
protein's the bit they look forward to. So, instead of thinking, oh, I'm just going to have a chicken breast or just like one burger patty, you should just have like two pieces because then it's just a bit more enjoyable. If you have
Hmm.
two protein options on the plate, and like for lunch, I've been having like some canned mackerel and a piece of chicken and
Hmm.
a couple of boiled eggs.
Oh, I
And
love that. Yeah.
and it actually simplifies your eating so much because
Hmm.
it's not thinking, oh, I've got to have a like a complex carb and a salad or whatever. It's just like, nope, I'm just having two proteins, and if I don't have like meat, then it's
Yeah.
like it's a can of something and some boiled eggs and a piece of cheese.
That's absolutely beautiful. So one of the things, if you followed my channel for any length of time, first thing you'll notice is that I always just wear a black t-shirt. And the reason I do that is because I don't have to think about what I'm going to wear every day as I'm recording. It's a black t-shirt and it works perfect for me. And that's kind of like why I eat the way I do. I don't want to think
Hmm.
about eating.
Hmm.
Eating for
Hmm.
me is just fueling up my body. And that
Hmm.
works well. And that goes back to my philosophy. It's like, um, Albert Einstein, um, basically had one set of clothes. I mean, he had obviously
Hmm.
multiple jackets, multiple shirts, multiple pants and stuff, but it was basically one set. And he wore that
Right.
every day because he didn't want to spend time thinking. He had other
Hmm.
things to think
Hmm.
about.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
very much like Rob was saying, for me, eating is a part of my day. I do it to fuel my body, but I'm putting in prime fuel. I don't want to think about it. That's why I've
Hmm.
got it down
Hmm.
to a very
Hmm.
simple science on what
Hmm.
I'm eating. And same thing
Hmm.
goes with how I dress. I don't want to think about it. I'm trying to optimize my time. And
Right.
and so I agree very much with what Rob is saying here. And that's why I was so excited when we talked. I said, Rob, I've got to get you on my channel so people can hear you. And I want them to look at your website and
Hmm.
start thinking about joining what you're doing because you're not going to be happy if you follow me
Yeah, yeah.
unless you're boring like I am in terms of
Right,
what you
right.
eat. So
Yeah, I mean, like, I
I
think
want
the
to
key,
invite
yeah,
that.
I mean, like, part of the online program, like, there is basically the real core lessons are meal prep guides, where
Hmm.
because, like, unless you are lucky enough to be easily adaptable, like Mark, most people want to have variety, and the
Hmm.
key for, basically from doing this for a couple of years, I realized the key for success relies in consistency, right? Because if you're in a ketogenic state, fasted state, now you're just burning small amounts of fat per day. And while that might not be noticeable day to day, but when you compound that over 20 days, 30 days, 60 days, that you're
Hmm.
looking at huge amounts of fat loss, but at the same time feeling amazing because obviously you're running on ketones the whole time. And that's obviously a side point why that's so useful for like professionals that are engaged in intellectually demanding work. Because if you're a lawyer or accountant, you have to have your brain sharp. And I think that's often
Hmm.
people wrongly assume that, oh, if you're on keto, you feel like crap and you can't focus and all that stuff because they think, oh, we'll get the keto flu. But it's just another example of people not having all the information before they make a decision.
Yes,
But just to
I
sort of,
agree.
but just to
Okay,
loop back,
if I could,
like the
yeah,
lessons. So in order to have success, you must have consistency.
right.
In order to be consistent, you have to be organized, and that kind of links to what you're saying. You don't want to have to think about it. You
Hmm.
just want to have the meals prepped in your fridge. So you're like, okay, well, I've got chicken in salad, or I've got beef and cauliflower, or whatever it is, just so you're not thinking about it, because that is when the human mind has to think about what it wants to eat. Suddenly, especially if you have a bad relationship with food, you're thinking, oh, what do I feel like, or what do I fancy, or like what's going to make me happy? And
Hmm.
in that point, that's where people fail because they think they need to be like so overly content with what they're going to get, and that's why people overorder, right? Because they're not like, oh, I'm just going to get the chicken dish. I'm also going to
Hmm.
get some chicken wings. I'm going to get this. I'm going to get that, and so like, it's just the human psyche is just so vulnerable to choices. Like we perform better when there's limited choices. Like you said, Albert Einstein, he
Yeah.
doesn't want to. He doesn't like you have bigger problems
Hmm.
to think about than what you're going to wear and what you're going to eat. It should just be automatic.
Yeah. So let me stop you there for a second, Rob. Just for a little housekeeping here. So uh, this is going to be broken up into a couple multiple videos. I'll let you
Hmm.
know right now, everyone. And
Yeah.
so this will be the end of the first video, quite honestly.
Hmm.
But the link to Rob's site will be on the comments, or not the comments, the description
Yeah.
for this video, so you can get to it. And I do recommend heartily that you guys check it out. Ask Rob questions, and he's ready to go. Okay, he's great, and like I said, this is good for everybody. All right, let's